and I'm willing to share, I'm here to share from the heart, and, whatever you want to put emphasis on versus, regarding laughter and dying and.
Yes. Maybe I can help because I know you longer than Jan Mark.
One comment. You know, Jan Mark, then until now, I did everything well. If the name comes Jan, so a long Jan, then I did something wrong. So now everything works well.
Yes, everything works perfectly well. And I want to emphasize that Jan and me, we are a couple since 10 years and 10 days, 20 days. And for the 10th anniversary, he gave me the gift that he will be my co-presenter today. So this is, what he has in mind. And he's in the laughter world today for the very first time. Premiere. Okay. So let's start off with a story. Yeah, we got to know each other in Berlin, and what you were in 16 years ago. It was like 2005. You had you were in a special moment of your life. Laughter was present in your life, and also death and dying and grief. Would you like to start sharing? Because I know it's overwhelming. We shed a lot of tears back then, and since then you are in this field between laughter and death and dying, and we would like to know a part of your story.
So actually, it was I'll just give something prior to that year, because when I was 10 years old, I went to the theater with my mother, and at the time I already had a very contagious laughter, and every time I started laughing, she would like punch me. You embarrass me. Everybody's looking at us. And I was confused as a child because it was a comedy. Everybody in the audience was laughing. Why was I embarrassing her? And I was afraid of my mother. But I remember at the end of the show, first of all, the actors came off stage and say, would you join us for every presentation? Sit in the audience so you can make everybody laugh. And I looked at my mom and I say, you wait and see. When I'll grow up, I'll make everybody in England laugh. I don't know why I say England, but that's what I said. So I had to make this promise, this threat become true. So for 20 years, I was working primarily with sexual assault survivors, and I was reaching the age of 40, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to retire from those organizations. I want to make that promise come true. And you know that when the student is ready, the teacher shows up, and 3 months after I said it, Dr. Madan Kataria showed up in Israel, and the rest is history. This was December 2004. So I left my previous job and I just started doing laughter yoga workshops. And that was the year of 2005. And you know the three basic myths. You can laugh for no reason. You can laugh even when you're not in a good mood, and you can laugh even if you don't have a sense of humor. But I was already doing all that. I had a sense of humor. I could laugh when I had, for no reason. And I could laugh also when I was having a hard time. This is actually what saved me as a child. So it was very easy for me. And I was blessed with a contagious laughter. And I was leading groups for so many years. So it was like I was, sitting right where I belonged. And it feels like the universe was testing me. I'm like, oh, really? Let's see if you can laugh when you're not in a good mood. So the following year, in 2006, my mother was already dying of cancer. She was coping with cancer for 4 years, and her condition was becoming worse and worse and worse. and she was getting in and out of hospitals quite often, and she was hospitalized in May. And it was also a holiday in Israel, and the phone rang at 5 o'clock in the morning, and it was my brother who lived in the United States. And the first thought that crossed my mind was like, why is my brother calling me from the United States to tell me that probably my mother died? And he said, are you sitting? And I'm like, yeah, what's going on? And he said, your brother and your sister-in-law just died in a plane crash. So here I am, I get this news, and I'm the one who has to go to my mom who's dying and to my father who's helping out there in the hospital and share the sad news. And that happened in May. 2 months after my brother and my sister-in-law passed away, a war broke out in Israel, in the north. I live in the north, and Haifa, this is the city where I live, was bombed from 5 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock at night, and I did not leave town. I stayed here. I even tried to continue running laughter workshops, driving while the city is bombed. And nobody showed up to those workshops because, they don't have, reason to laugh because there's a war going on. So the business was I was almost going out of business because of that. There was a big financial crisis there. And this is when we met. I came to Berlin. I said, I have to go to this conference. And I was on stage, and Madame Kataria turned to me and said, why don't you share with us? You have a very successful laughter club in Israel. Why don't you tell us, about your club? And I'm like, no, I don't want to talk about my club. I want to talk about how laughter helped me cope both with the loss of my brother and my sister-in-law and with the war. And this is where I shared my story. And 2 months after I came back from Berlin, my mom passed away. So within 6 months, I had all those tragic, traumatic deaths in my life. And I was thinking about the symbolism. My brother, the one that died, his name was Dudi or David. He was a very, very funny person. He didn't laugh for no reason. He was very, very funny, and he had a very unique sense of humor. When he was buried, it was at the same time that my laughter club met in Haifa. And I was not there, obviously, to lead the session, but I found the letter that I wrote to them. I was like going through my paperwork, and I'm like, I found the letter. I'm like, if there's anything we can do to memorize my brother is to laugh. So please, even if you cry, that's okay, but please do me a favor. I'm not gonna be there, but please laugh and continue. Let life go, like the show go on, life must go on. And you can shed tears, but and it can be combined with laughter, and everything is okay. Because when I look at laughter, I don't, I look at the mechanics of laughter. I think this is what laughter yoga gave me. And then there's the dynamic of laughter. And this is what I got from laughter therapy and laughter coaching, because the whole thing about fake it until you make it is based on the natural mechanics of laughter. We can smile, then there's the, the ignition of laughter, and then the laughter starts rolling. But this, how do you say, engine needs fuel, and the fuel is the emotions, the painful emotions that feed this engine. So laughter can release anger, and laughter can release fear, and laughter can release boredom, and laughter can release distress. And you can actually tell what emotions are being released by the sound of the laughter. So I think that the two of them, the mechanics and the dynamics, is what really helped me to use laughter while I was dealing with my grief. Because everybody, if you know the stages of grief and loss, there's anger there, there's distress there, there's fear there. So it's not just sadness. So when you obviously you cannot release sadness through laughter. A lot of people try to do that. This is where they stay on the fake laughter because it will not ignite the engine. And but if you know that you're angry at the person who died or how they died or who killed them, and that you're afraid of what's going to happen and anxious about it or feel all the stress, then it's very easy to connect the laughter and the emotions and start laughing again, even while you're grieving and, you know, coping with the loss.
Mm-hmm. Did you do it on your own, or did you go especially to your laughter club to lead, to be able to laugh it off?
I remember I was away for 2 weeks because my father had to go to the States because my brother lived in the United States. So he went to the funeral and somebody had to stay in Israel to help with my mom in the hospital. So I stayed here. So for 2 weeks, I didn't lead anything, but I made a decision to go back both to my laughter club that met every Sunday for 4 years consecutively. So I made a decision to go back, and I also got a lot of invitation to lead workshops. What I told people is, I just lost my brother. I have no idea if I'll be able to laugh, but I'm bringing my body and my knowledge and my facilitation skills, and I'll do my utmost to make this workshop work. I don't promise that I'll laugh. And at the beginning of every workshop for the first year, I would share my story. And what happened is a lot of people that just recently experienced loss or trauma or were anxious or depressed started showing up to my workshops. We wanted, because they said, we want to know how you deal with that and how you cope with that. So for me, it was like, this was a healing journey. I said, I'm here for you, but I'm also here for myself. And I don't know what will happen. And if I'll cry, that's fine. It was very legitimate in my laughter workshops to cry. So, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. Now we are one participant more. Your cat has joined.
Okay, that's a near-death experience because I have two cats at home. She showed up at my doorstep 3 years ago, almost like dying. She was like knocking at the door, please save me, please. I'm like, no, there's no vacancy. I have 2 cats. I can't take any. And she's like, you know, she broke my heart, and then I fell in love and saved her. And so, you know, sometimes you don't have to die, but yeah, you have to ask for help. That's a lesson too.
Yeah. Of course, Kerstin mentioned I'm new in the laughter area here, and I have one question about what you mentioned 1 minute before. There are different sounds of laughter. I only know it that maybe I can hear from the voice from other people if they are stressed or if they are happy or if they are sad. But how do you recognize about the kind of laughing? How is the mood of the person you are talking to?
I'm not referring to the mood, I'm referring to the emotion, the painful emotion. So first of all, when I work as a laughter therapist or a laughter coach, I ask people how they feel. And I also, if they have a hard time recognizing their emotions, I help them out, because it's very easy to find out how you feel if you know where to find your emotions. But when it comes to, I'll start with anger, because for me, for many years, I was able to express my sadness very easily, like crying, and I could express my fear, but I was not able to express my anger and my rage, and I had quite a lot. But my laughter was an avenue to release a lot of anger. And what I learned about it is that the world divided into 2. You know that laughter is contagious. It's not just the laughter, it's the emotion behind the laughter. So if people tell you that your laughter pisses them off, is because they're not connected to their anger. So when I laugh, releasing my anger, and they get, and they're affected by it, and you know, how do you say that? My laughter is contagious, and they're
infected
by it. It's usually because I feel anger, I laugh and release my anger. You know, we have those mirror neurons. So
yes,
what they feel,
mirror neurons.
So I make them connect with their anger. So instead of saying, wow, why I'm so angry, I'm like, she makes us mad because the laughter, they can't stand my laughter. So the sound of angry laughter is with the, usually with the, sounds like ha, but I'll demonstrate, obviously. It's like this. And you get really, really red, okay? So a lot of women usually don't, we're not allowed to be angry. We're supposed to be very nice and smile and please everyone. So it's a great way for women to connect with their anger and release it in a very friendly way without killing anybody around them. So that's the sound of anger. The sound of fear, it's usually, it comes from the throat and it's like shivering. You know that the way the body releases fear is by shivering. So it's like, like that. The only one I cannot demonstrate, it only happens to me in real time, is how to imitate the laughter of boredom. But what I can tell you is that if you listen to children, I don't know with the lockdown now, but if you listen to children leaving their classroom, going to the yard in their school, this is the kind of laughter you'll hear, because obviously a lot of them are bored in the classroom. And so when finally they got out, then they release it through laughter. And a lot of teachers do not allow to laugh in the classroom. So that's the sound of boredom. I can't imitate it. I know when I'm bored and I'm laughing my head off while I'm bored, but I cannot imitate that laughter. So yeah, that's what I can say about the different sounds. And also you'll see if the person is afraid, their face is pale, and if they're angry, their face will go red. And if they laugh from fear, the body is cold, and if they laugh from anger, the body is warm. So there's a lot of signs that you can see, and connect the emotions and the laughter. What about?
Yeah. Thanks a lot. I have a question from Dusty, and the question is, what about positive emotions?
I have a very different view on that. Emotions, in my perspective, are only painful emotions, and they're called emotions because it's energy in motion, and it has to be released from the body. And this is why we got all the release mechanism: the crying, the laughter, the yawning, the shivering and shaking, the screaming. All of them uses the diaphragm goes up and down, and there's the sound that goes with it. These are, and also it's the east in emotion stands for exit, something that needs to go out. The positive emotions, I don't refer to them as emotions, but as a state of being. Love, joy, peace, serenity, all of them are the natural state of being. Then a painful emotion comes like a cloud, and then it has to move away. But I don't want to release my laughter. I can express my love. I can express my peace of mind, but it's a state of being. It's not emotion. That's how I perceive it. It's very different than and I always say that they come in pairs. If you want to feel joy, the opposite is sadness. So you have to cry your sadness, and then immediately after, once you release all the sadness, you'll return to the state of mind or your state of being and be joyful again. So they kind of anger goes with peace, and boredom goes with satisfaction, and fear goes with love, and shame, which is a sort of fear, goes with courage. So they come together, and the more we release our painful emotions, I don't even call them negative because there's a wisdom in them. So the more we release our negative emotions, we can go back to our natural state of being.
Good.
Yeah, and yeah, interesting. These pictures. There is coming a cloud, and then the cloud is going away. I have a question about the timeline here. In your introduction, there is, in other words, as long as we are trapped in the past, we are living dead in the present. I have a question. So, of course, but in sometimes the past is really helpful for me because what I achieved in the past makes me stronger in the present. So, so how can I combine it to get a benefit from the past, but not to be too long in the past, so that, as you said, or if I quote your sentence, living dead in the present. So how should I manage this?
What you're saying, I think, is more, by the way, you can learn from your past successes and achievements, and you can learn from your past failures. A failure is also a great teacher, okay? Yeah. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when your story, your past story, your traumas own you, and you're not the owner of your life, and you're owned by your, when you're owned by your stories, all the emotions are stored in the body, and they run you. They run your patterns and your habits and your choices, and your belief system is also painted by your past. This is what I'm talking about, being trapped in the past. Not what you're saying. What you're saying is great because I use it as your inner model of success. And that's something you want to take from past experiences. And also when you take ownership of your story, then you can grow out of trauma, because the trauma holds, I say to people, your genius is stored in the trauma. As long as you're not willing to meet with it and not overcome it, connect with it, because we split when we have a trauma in our life and we're not our true selves. And there's a gap between who I truly am and the personality that I had to create in order to protect myself from those wounds. That's why you're trapped. You're actually trapped inside yourself. And your true self is not able to shine through. So that's what I'm saying about, and so it's like walking dead, because you cannot live life to its fullest and you're not actualizing your potential.
See. And in addition, Dusty has a second question. I would like to read it. How do you use this with people at the end of life? So it's referring to the first questions. What about positive emotions? And how do you use this with people at the end of life?
I had a chance to work with cancer patients that, they were hoping to stay alive, but some of them did not last and died. The same way, I look for, first of all, as far as I'm concerned, cancer has to do with a lot of stored rage and also unresolved grief from the past. So they have to do both, work on their anger and rage and also on their sadness. But if I know that there's anger there and also fear of dying and fear of pain and fear of what will happen to their loved ones after they're gone, I use the emotion as the fuel in order to ignite the laughter. But the laughter coaching and laughter therapy is a bit different than laughter yoga. I do not demonstrate, like you guys were, welcome me with doing this movement and adding the laughter onto that. I will talk to the person, see what's going on in their body, ask how they feel, and then invite them. Now, sometimes I have to invite them to cry, not to laugh. And we play, in laughter therapy, we say that we meet the emotions when we run out of words. So sometimes somebody will say a sentence and then at the end she will laugh. And I know that there's an emotional charge there. So I'll go back to that sentence. Like, can you repeat that again and again and again until all the emotion there is released? And again, like I said, there's a lot of sadness when somebody is dying, but at the same time, there's a lot of anger and there's a lot of anxiety and fear. So I will look for those emotions in order to work with laughter.
I see. And
and by the way, it's also with the physical pain. And this is something very important. I lead people to connect with their pain. I will not do anything to them. I'll ask them if they're willing to work with their physical pain. And they usually be in contact with their pain. And I'll ask them to put some pressure until it's, as long as it's bearable. And like with pain, we work with the ouch, like say, ouch, ouch, ouch. So a lot of the time they're so embarrassed to even scream that the laughter comes in naturally. But obviously we all know that laughter is very good with physical pain as well as with emotional pain. So.
Your cat is really relaxed. When you are loud, then only a small open of eyes, and then is then again away and is sleeping. Great. I have a personal question. My mom, she is 85 and she has a hip operation. And then everything works well, but now she is really suffering from pain. Of course, she is using painkillers, but what is, of course, you don't know my mom, but what is your idea or recommendation? How can I tell her, you are suffering a complete day about this pain from the hip. So how can I turn this into a positive way? Of course, we are talking, we do jokes, we are talking about her experience in the past, about her childhood, because that is really interesting for her, and were the nice times. But how can I turn this helping with your experience and your knowledge in a positive way if she is down because of the pain?
Okay.
Difficult question, of course.
It's a good question because I cope with a chronic disease that the pain is unbearable. People usually go into the hospital and take morphine, and I refuse to take drugs. When you take drugs and you laugh, the laughter releases the effect of the drug, but it doesn't use the drugstore of your body. So when I work with people and pain, they have to be willing to be drug-free. Emotional pain or physical pain, doesn't matter. It's like with coffee, you drink coffee and you laugh, the laughter, I don't know how you say it. It releases what's in the coffee. It doesn't really actually releases the stored emotion or pain in the body. So that's one thing. I'm not to tell your mom to get off drugs. I'm just saying that the drugs have an effect. I have worked with people, like with depressed people with drugs and anxious people with drugs, and gradually they went off drugs. And then they told me that they're anxious again and depressed again, but they're coping and they're willing to feel their pain. So I'm not saying to get to a point where it's unbearable, but I did have a client that went into a surgery. She's in her 70s. So what we did is we prepared her for the surgery. She laughed for 2 months before the surgery. She told the medical staff that she's going to laugh while they roll her into the surgery. And the moment she opens her eyes, she's going to laugh in order to reduce the pain and to enhance the healing. And she said, Nili, I'm not on painkillers. And they were very impressed with her quick recovery. So maybe it's, individual thing, but that's a success story with somebody who had a similar experience. So I don't know about your mom. I'm just talking, in general, and I will never tell anybody to get off drugs. I'm not a doctor and I'm not a psychiatrist. I just share my perspective, and I say that it's less effective while you're on drugs, while you're not on drugs. But I want to say something, because that's from my own experience. When you're in tremendous pain, your body goes into survival mode, and it's not time to lose control. So your body, it will be very hard to laugh or to cry. So a lot of the times I tell people, do it before the pain is very bad, and after, the pain supposedly went away, in order to release it from the emotions, so they won't be stored in the body. But sometimes while we're in pain, it will be very hard for us to laugh.
Okay. And you said when you are stressed and then you are not shouting, you are laughing. And if I got it right, then it is a nice way for women to show their stress, and not maybe like maybe men will do it. They stand up and shout, and damn, and why is it not working? And you have this nice way to show your stress in a diplomatic way. Yeah. Is it typical for women, or is it typical for you? Or
I was talking about anger. Women, it's not legitimate for women in this society, this Western society, to express their anger and rage, because usually, they're called names. She's a bitch, Guys have more legitimacy to express anger and rage. They have less legitimacy to express sadness and fear. Be a big boy, don't cry, and what are you afraid of? So for women, anger is an issue, and for men, usually fear and sadness is an issue. Now, if you go to the gym, you see guys, lifting weights. What do? Ha! Ha! They release a lot of anger. You go and look at a woman, and she goes like this. She doesn't let any sound out. So what I used to do in my, anger is an emotion that rises when somebody's threatening our boundaries. That's its. It has two functions. On a survival level, it's like, whoa, somebody is about to enter the territory, and you need to make sure that they're not gonna cross those boundaries. So I used to, that is something that you can take to your workshops. I used to share a story about a dog. Well, it can be a cat, but a dog. A dog has litter, and the puppies chew on their mother's ears. So I would have people stand in circle and hold the ears of each other. and I would share this story. So the puppies will go and they chew on her ear, and it's not comfortable for her. She goes like, "Rrr." And they keep on chewing on the ear, and we keep on, touching each other's ears. And then she will raise her voice and will say, "Rrr," and they will keep chewing on her ears. And she has to make sure they stop. So she go like, "Rah, rah," So I would teach women to bark. Now it was funny and humorous, and it was embarrassing, and everybody laughed. I mean, the point is to laugh in order to release the anger. So it got, it served the purpose. And people say, how can I bark in my home? I said, tell your neighbors that you got a new dog. Or when the dog is barking, join the barks. And I would say, if you hear people barking in their houses, that's probably because they've been to my laughter workshop. I will share a serious story. I had a client who had cancer, and she had a tumor, like a brain tumor. And she came, the workshop was in Tel Aviv. Anyway, she had to drive 2 hours to the workshop and back and forth. And she carpooled with other friends from the workshop. And they were talking about cancer in the car. She was not part of the conversation. And they were talking about cancer. And she got angry and angry and angry. She didn't notice that that's what was going on for her. And her husband came to meet her somewhere in order to pick her up. And she got into a car and she started yelling at him and arguing with him. And he looked at her and was like, why are you like this? What did I do? You know, he didn't know where this was coming from. Only once she got home, she was like, oh my God, I did not set boundaries. I felt uncomfortable in this conversation. I didn't say anything. I stored all this anger. And the moment I could release it, I dumped it on my poor husband. So she went into a separate room and she started barking. And he walked in, is like, this is what she teaches you in the workshop, to bark. And they start barking together. And then she apologized to him and she said, I did not understand that I was getting angrier and angrier, and I needed, you know, this anger needed a way out. And unfortunately, it was like arguing with you and screaming at you for no, you know, good reason. Not that there's always a good reason to scream at someone. And she came back to the workshop and she shared this with us. And she said, okay, now we can all bark at home. But if she only was in touch with their feelings and emotions and was like, oh my God, this is uncomfortable, and say, hey, friends, you know, you're talking about cancer. I'm dealing with cancer. This is not comfortable for me. And was able to set boundaries, she would not have gotten to that stage of yelling at her husband.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. Now I see our neighbors here with other have another view to our neighbors, because sometimes there is a dog barking, but I'm not pretty sure if it is a dog or they joined your classes. Yeah, so I have to ask.
The funniest thing is that I always, you know, you're angry, you want to act like a Rottweiler, but whenever I bark, I sound like a poodle, so it's not that threatening.
Okay. Yeah, well, I have a question from Moni. Do you do laughter therapy with sexual abuse victims in order to heal their trauma?
Well, it will always go back to working with the painful emotions. First of all, up until today, everybody that comes to work with me has in their background sexual assault because of my, you know, my past experience working with them. You just have to ask and it just surfaces. First of all, I don't do the trauma work. If they need to do trauma work, I will send them to a therapist to do trauma work, but I will work with the emotions that rise up around anger and sadness and fear and boredom and distress. I can share with you that this was in one of the like spiritual festivals in Israel, and I actually did a laughter workshop in Waters. And I didn't know the stories of the people. It was, you know, like one session. It's not that I knew or had a previous knowledge of their backgrounds. And I recall one of the women approaches me and like saying, my grandfather sexually abused me. And at the end of the workshop, she asked to enter the center of the circle, like all of us were standing in circle, and she was screaming at the skies, speaking of death and life and you know, death and life. And she said, you're dead and I'm alive. And she burst into laughter, you know? So it's, or I worked with them. I had a workshop with battered women. And she said, it's not that my problems have changed. I'm still in a battered women's shelter, but my perspective on my problem is different. So I think it's a change of perspective on what they experience after they do emotional work and using laughter as a tool to release some of the, you know, the stored emotions, the stored painful emotions. Yeah. I can tell you that I worked with an incest survivor for many, many, many years in groups for incest survivors. And she heard about my laughter club. And she said, I want to join. And the following day, I got an email. You know the warning they have on cigarette boxes? I ask you to put a warning. This is not good for depressed people, dangerous for depressed people. So, and for me, especially in this case, she would not even be able to shake your hands, let alone hug you. She always kept a distance. And when she was in this laughter workshop, she was rolling on the floor and getting in touch with people and touching people. This was like, whoa, this something is. So for me, I think a lot of it brings back the trust, first of all, in your own body and then in other people.
Yeah.
And you can create intimacy that's not available to you when you're just in talk therapy.
Well, thanks, and a big thank you from Moni. Yeah, so thank you for answering this in this detailed way. Thanks. I have a question from Thomas. Can you recommend a good book about laughter therapy?
It hurts me to say that because other than Dr. Madan Kataria, my other teacher was Dr. Annette Goodhart, and she wrote only one book. For me, this is the Bible of laughter therapy. Unfortunately, I think Kataria is very good at marketing and PR, and she wasn't. So everything I'm lucky that I bought all her CDs and books and stuff, but that's the only thing, and I think it's still available. It's Laughter Therapy by Dr. Annette Goodhart. I know that maybe, Kirsten, maybe you know, what's his name? He's a very well-known laughter yoga teacher from California. He originally is from France, but he lives in California.
Sebastian Drendry?
Sebastian.
Right. And I know that he was in touch with Annette Goodhart's family and wanted to market her product. So maybe he knows better than I do about it. I was the lucky one to have the last interview with her. I interviewed her in English, and 2 weeks after that, she passed away. So that's my only, the book and that, Goodhart. Yeah, Annette Goodhart. That's I know that there are many books. I think that she was the only one. Yeah, that's her name. I think that she was the only one because she was an artist and then she became a psychologist. She had a PhD in clinical psychology. She was quite a character. And for me, because I come from background in psychology and group facilitation and working with trauma, I was very interested in the emotional, in the deep emotional work. And that's what I've learned from her. So I think it's very different than most of the books that I know that are available. They're either about laughter yoga or humor therapy, but they're barely anything. I have a lot of material in Hebrew that I've produced myself, but it's not in English. Maybe it's about time. Yeah.
I have a question for you. Since the beginning of our friendship, I would say, you have gone your way, step by step. And are you still sometimes in deep grief? Did you get in touch with your emotions? How did that change over the time?
I think I shared with you that a few years ago, my father committed suicide. So basically, all my family, except for my older brother, everybody died in a pretty tragic or traumatic, or I wouldn't say unnatural, but cancer is a disease, but still it was, my mom was not that old when she died. For me, it's a spiral journey. COVID-19 brought a lot of unresolved loss and grief issues back into my life. And I've gone, but for me, it was, first of all, a lot of crying and a lot of artwork. And the moment the laughter came back, I knew that I was out of the depression, because the first sign of depression is that you stop laughing. So in 1997, I was clinically depressed, not knowing everything I know about laughter now. And I was like, where is my laughter gone? This was like my trademark. So for me, for not laughing for a year, I was longing to laugh again. And once the laughter came back, I came back to life. But I think that when it comes to grief, you cannot skip stages. You have to go through all the stages, and it's very painful. Especially there's a healthy part that's depression. And when you're depressed, you can't laugh. You just have to cry and, connect with your sadness. It will eventually go away, but you have to be there, and it's no fun. So, and the other thing, I think we spoke about it when we talked before the interview, that we think about grief and loss only in relationship to death. And I talk about everything that you lose. You lose money, you lose a job, you lose a relationship, you lose a pet, you lose your trust, you lose the body part, you lose your health. There's so many different types of losses that we don't treat as loss, and they are losses, and we have to grieve. If you're even a fat person and you want to be skinny, you have to lose the fat image and grieve the old fat lady in order to give birth to a skinny one. That's also a grieving process that we have to go through, to within our lifetime, to allow ourselves to die in order to give birth to something new. So I teach people to be friends. When I think of my life and all the deaths in my life, I'm like, it was a great teacher. Death is a great teacher on how to live life to its fullest. And I think now with COVID, everybody is afraid of dying. Like, wake up! I could have skipped in my shower and break my neck, and I can go into a car and be in a car accident. Death is waiting for me every day, everywhere, right? So let's be friends with it. And it won't. This is where the story owns us. The relationship we have with death will determine how we live our life. And I think that's, it's like, why are you going nuts? So it's a virus. Okay, we're all gonna die one day, sooner or later, let's be friends with death. So I have a joke with people will be, because when I get into a laughter tantrum, people can I can't, stop, and my stomach hurt, and please stop. You kill me. I'm like, on my grave, it will be written, died laughing.
Yeah.
And everybody is invited to be buried next to me, killed us laughing. Yeah.
Yeah, and also the statistics here in Germany say, it is probably more possible to die at home than to die outside. Yeah, so it's proved by the statistics. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but the funniest thing is when Annette Goodhart died, she died of lung cancer. She was in her 80s, and people were from the laughter yoga community saying, how come she died? She was a laughter therapist. Oh yeah, you think we're immune, right? And I was thinking of the word immortal. Immortal is I am mortal. We are all mortal. We're not immortal. We're gonna die. Well, at least let's die laughing, instead of.
Yeah, and so you answered Thomas' question well. So he's happy, and he is also happy because he already has this book, and he shared the details and also the ISBN number, so everybody can order it. So thanks, Thomas, for this hint. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. I have a last question for you. Now I see you laughing and bright and shining and full of energy and laughter. And we have talked about your past. How about your future? What are your plans? What are you going to achieve, or what's in your heart? What would like you to what would you express and live?
I think the entire humanity right now is traumatized by what happened over the past year. And I think that a lot of people are coming to terms that for many, many years, they tried to shove all their emotions underneath the rug, and they cannot go on. Like all the anxiety and all the fear and all the anger that's like surfacing right now is not just because of COVID-19. That's the end result of many years of not. My motto is that if you're hurting, you will hurt yourself and other people unless you treat your wounds. So my goal is to have as many people like yourselves doing this great work, help other people release their painful emotions so they can heal themselves and be good to themselves and to the rest of the world and actually actualize their potential. So, but what happened with this conference, and also speaking with Nir, who was supposed to be here before I joined that conference, is that I put laughter. I mean, I laugh in my own life, but I put laughter aside in my business. And it's like, it's about time I reclaim my laughter in a different way and bring it back to my work, because I've stayed away from that field for many years now. So yeah, so like reclaiming my laughter.
Yeah, maybe one comment from my side. So sometimes during your laughing and during your explanations and sharing your experience, I got goosebumps. Yeah, so it was really touching me. So thanks a lot. And if I see at the chat, there are also a lot of feedback. For example, from Utah and from Dusty, they are really happy to have you with us. So first of all, thanks a lot from my side. And I would give to Kerstin for the final words, please.
Final words and final laughter. Yeah, it has been a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you for sharing and for all your good vibes that you are spreading. Yeah, all the best for you. And now I invite my laughter fellows and participants in the room to open up the mic again and guide you out of your out of this right now by laughter. Yeah. Okay, liebe Leute, let's say goodbye. Thank you so much and laugh with you soon. Laugh with you soon.
Thank you.
Danke.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Wir machen eine halbe Stunde Pause We are in a 30 minutes break now. Yeah, and restart is at 11:35. No, 11:30 for those who want to move. 11:30 Uhr für die, die dann noch 5 Minuten Bewegung haben möchten. Bis gleich.
Okay.
Zurück. Und jetzt geht wieder die Aufmerksamkeit